Welcome back, everyone, to a new episode of The Hot Seat. I am your host, Brock Vieira, here for Team NBS Media, and we are talking college football. Now, usually when it comes to college football, we'll talk about this on the show, College Football Forecast, the show I have with my co-host, Bill Carroll, but this is very pressing as the world of college football keeps changing day by day. Of course, conference realignment, that's what we're here to talk about, especially in the Big Ten. Now, as we know, the Pac-12 conference is dying, if not already dead, with teams UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington all slated to join the Big Ten here in by 2024. We'll be bringing on Ryan Dunn from One and Done Radio, a diehard Michigan fan. He gives us all the insight to Wolverines program, but also into the conference as well. We'll bring him on shortly. But first, let's talk about the Pac-12 real quick. As we all know, the 12-team conference has basically disassembled itself overnight for a variety of reasons, all of them financial. As mentioned, USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon are headed to the Big Ten. Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado are all headed to the Big 12. That leaves Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, and Washington State as the four remaining teams. We will see what will happen with them. It's in all likelihood, it'll probably merge with the Mountain West, with the Mountain West getting very favorable terms in terms of that. But it's going to shake up the entire college football landscape, especially when it comes to the national championship picture. Of course, we will talk about that all in due time. First, let's talk about how this will be affecting the Big Ten headed forward. Please welcome our guest, Ryan Dunn. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling pretty good, man. Like I said, it's a little crowded now in the Big Ten, but feeling pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing good, and you're absolutely right. Now, when we talk about the Big Ten, we always talk about the big boys. It's obviously the two teams that participate in the big game, your Michigan Wolverines, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Sometimes you can throw in Penn State. Sometimes you can throw in Michigan State. Probably not anytime in the near future at this point. But, those are kind of the main two programs that are going to be representing the Big Ten in the college football playoff if a team from that conference is to advance. Now, in the future, we'll be having an expanded Big Ten, also an expanded college football playoffs. How will this affect the Big Ten conference headed forward?
I think that's what it's going to do is going to have the Big Ten either split up into three divisions where you have East, Central, West, or you're going to have it. See that, and that's what I'm kind of in limbo of is like what's going to happen with the alignment. Are we going to split up into the regions? Are we going to just have one major conference, top two teams go to the Big Ten title game? I don't know. It's such a weird thing because we don't have official, like we don't have anything established yet. We don't know what the plan is for the next realignment within the conference. And I'm excited to see it. It is a little it's kind of crazy how everything just got Pac-12 was at one point together and now it's just blew up at the blink of an eye. It felt like Colorado was gone and then everyone else just followed suit. I know USC and UCLA, left prior, but it was so weird how it just happened overnight. Now the Pac-12 is a Pac-4. The Big Ten, I don't even know what we're called anymore. I think we're just going to be called like the Big. We're going to be at 18 teams. SEC, and I talked about it actually with a couple people the other day because we talked about USC, UCLA before Oregon and Washington. They're like, what's the Big Ten going to be called? Because it hasn't had 10 teams for a while. I'm like, probably the Big because it's just SEC. You don't have to change that name. ACC, you don't need to change that name. Pac-12, not 12 anymore. And the Big 12 now has more than 12 teams. So probably different name changes. I think if the Big 10 is going to change the name, they should change to the Big and do that now before the Big 12 does it. Now you're like, wow, Big 10, but we have 18 teams. So.
Yeah, and just to kind of point out how outrageous this move is, I was recently playing the last college football game to come out, NCAA 14. You could customize your conferences, but you can only add up to 16 teams. So now we're talking about something that's uncharted territory. And the reason why you can only add 16 teams is so you could have your non-conference scheduled opponents. How will this move impact non-conference scheduling headed forward for every team in the Big Ten?
Honestly, I think what it should do is draw less non-conference opponents. When you have a conference full of the number of teams the Big Ten's going to have, why are you scheduling? And maybe you do one, maybe two non-conference opponents a year. But if you have all these teams and you're going to try and figure out who the top two teams are that go to your conference championship, I think you should decrease the number of conference games that you play. Now, I think the SEC should take note of this as well as the Big 12. When you have all these teams, you are going to have your cupcake opponents like, let's face it, Rutgers. Northwestern is going to be a cupcake opponent this year. So you're going to have your cupcakes in there, but you're also going to have your tough teams that you are going to run into and to face. So I think you should get rid of like number of non-conference games. I think this year we only had 3 this year from Michigan. I think you should bring it down to 2, maybe just 1 if you want the quote tune-up game that you had before you actually kick off your conference schedule.
Absolutely. Now we are, of course, going to talk about the 4 teams coming in, but could we see any teams going out? You mentioned Northwestern. I don't really see them because they are basically a team that's been there for a long time. But a team like Rutgers, who came over from a different conference fairly recently, I guess you could say, could we see them be excluded, or how will that work out?
Man, I don't know who to want them. I mean, they're not that big of a fan base when it comes to football or anything. I know like they're better at other sports, but football, no. Um, I mean, if they do choose to leave, fine. I mean, I think they kind of they should read the room. Like, oh, it's like going to that party that you were just kind of like invited to because we did. I mean, there wasn't enough people, so we just brought you along just to make it seem like that we had more people. But you get there, you're like, wow, everyone here is cooler than me. Like Rutgers is not as cool as Oregon or as USC, UCLA, Michigan, Ohio State. Rutgers is just not. They're not that cool. They're never going to be that big when it comes to football. Not when you have the talent. That's it. It is in the Big Ten, whatever it might be. So I do think Rutgers could leave. Maybe go to, if they want to feel better about themselves, maybe go to like a smaller, group of 5 conference. Maybe a smaller one. Maybe go Mountain West. I don't know. Get out of the Big Ten because it's just you're not going to be winning the conference at all. I think they should leave.
Absolutely. And quite frankly, if you were to ever suggest to me Rutgers should move to the Mountain West any time prior to probably this week, I would say you're crazy. But clearly, location is not a big thing in college football anymore. Now we talk about the Big Ten expanding west, but you guys already expanded east. Rutgers is in New Jersey. Maryland is on the East Coast. How will this, kind of differential of teams across the entire United States impact the original teams of the Big Ten, teams like Michigan, teams like Ohio State, so on and so forth?
When it comes to travel,
When it comes to travel, opponents, scheduling, how will that affect basically everything when it comes to setting up games?
yeah, I think when you look at the teams, the reason why the Pac-12 was what it was is because the teams were more in that region. So you're going to have the teams that are in that region flying over to us more often than we are to them. So it's kind of, I mean, it's going to put miles on these bodies for some of these kids. They're going to be traveling again. They're traveling more west to east than we are east to west. I doubt there's ever going to be a season where you're going to have a team like, let's say Rutgers is in there, like Rutgers going 4 straight times to the west. I think there's more chances of a team like Oregon or UCLA or whatever to go from west to east and east to west. So it's going to be a lot more travel for them. And people can try to say, oh, this is great for recruiting. I'm kind of like, it doesn't really matter when it comes to recruiting, in my opinion. If you are a good recruit and you want to go play for a team like Michigan, then you're going to go there. I understand proximity can matter. And people say, well, you got more influence now because now you can go into the territory of Oregon. Like, I mean, you technically could it before. It just depends on how good you are as a recruiter in general.
Absolutely. So we've been talking about the perspective from the Big Ten side. Let's look at the perspective from the West Coast teams. Now, obviously, we all know the reason why they joined the Big Ten is because money, right? You guys have a tremendous TV deal. They're going to generate between 36 to $40 million a year. But from a competitive standpoint, it's probably not that beneficial. Yes, Oregon did travel to Ohio State and beat them several years ago, but that was like CJ Stroud's second ever start as a quarterback. Had it been any other scenario besides that, could be a different story. I remember USC going to Boston College and losing. I remember USC hasn't necessarily played that well at Notre Dame the past couple times they've been there. For what way competitively does this benefit those 4 teams from the former Pac-12 conference?
Honestly, I don't. I honestly don't know. I mean, I guess it's if you beat those teams, then then you have better chance of making the playoffs. And that's the way I look at it. It's because it's adding to your strength of schedule because yeah, the Pac-12. I mean, at the end of the day, they weren't really a strong conference prior. I mean, besides last year, besides USC and Oregon, there really weren't like teams towards the end of the season. You're like, wow, they probably can make the playoffs. I mean, USC was the only one really fighting at the end of the season to make the playoffs, and then they dropped. They just fell so hard against Utah in the conference championship game. All they had to do was win that. They were in, and Ohio State would have been out. So I think when it comes to like the opponents, again, it's going to be more strength of schedule because, and again, with Oregon last year too, Oregon, if they did not lose to like Georgia early in the season, they and did not lose to Washington, or let's face this, if they did not get the crap beat out of them by Georgia and then lose to Washington, I know they lost to Oregon State as well.
Yes.
But if they didn't lose those games, I mean, if they had just lost a Georgia game and beaten Oregon beat Oregon State and beat Washington, then they would have been the playoffs. So it's just strength of schedule. We are going to be a tougher conference for them compared to the Pac-12 conference that these teams faced, and whatever's left of the Pac-12, the Pac-4.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the Mountain West plus four at this point is the best way to put it. So my biggest concern is that obviously there's going to be a log jam at the top in terms of trying to figure out a conference champion. Now, we've seen the Big Ten restructure how it goes about getting a champion. Before, it would just be the team with the best conference record. Then, obviously, when they expanded, there was the leaders and legends, and that was something. And then, obviously, they went to East and West, and I believe now they're going to just the two best teams with overall records. But now that you have 18 teams in a conference, could we? I know it sounds almost ridiculous to say, could we have a Big Ten playoff? Is that somehow a possibility?
Oh man, I think man, if you go that route, that's gonna be a lot on these kids' bodies. You know, I mean, the only way you can even go that route is if you one get rid of the non-conference schedule, like period. You reduce the regular season games to maybe like 10, and then you go that route because, like you said, it could be a log jam. You're like, wow, like how do we really determine like four one-loss teams are at the top and they are tied for the for a Big Ten record. So I mean, at that point, you look at strength of schedule, who beat who. There's some tiebreakers, so it would be a lot. And now, like I said, if you go that route of a Big Ten playoff, then that can determine who goes to the playoffs, and then they play at least what 2, 3, 4 more games in the playoffs. It's like that's a lot on these kids' bodies for an entire season. So I think you just have to reduce the regular season if that route does happen and see what happens, see what the results are at the end of the day. But I think you test out the first season, you see what happens that first season, see how it goes. If it goes smooth, where it's okay, well, we can clearly tell Michigan and Oregon, the top two teams, they are going to the Big Ten title game. They will fight there. If you can tell, then it continues to happen. But if we continue to have issues or like, well, how do we figure this out? Then you might see something happen like we did see in the college football playoffs where we expanded from 4 to 12. And you might see something where they say, well, clearly more teams deserve to get in than just these two or these four. So let's expand. So it's an interesting thought. I never thought of that, but I'd be very surprised if they did that without reducing regular season games.
Yeah, of course, and I think that's no question to it. The problem that I have, and obviously we're very new to this, so we haven't really, especially all of us with day jobs, right? Who you can attest to. We haven't really had the opportunity to kind of dissect how is this all gonna go down. Now, I remember watching many conferences before conference championship games just have co-champions because teams would be like 7-1 and they never would have played each other, so you really don't have a tiebreaker. Like for my personal story is 2010, the WAC conference. Boise
Mm-hmm.
State, Nevada, Hawaii, all were
Mm-hmm.
champions because they all had one loss and none of their losses were like combined. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's say in a hypothetical, USC, UCLA, Penn State, or Michigan, and this new weird line. For some reason, Penn State has played Michigan, whatever. They all go 7-1 hypothetically. They don't really play each other. I know that's not actually gonna happen. Just throwing that out there. How do you even like decide who is the two teams that goes? Do you go off the college football playoff rankings? Do you go off, you know, straight to schedule? Like, do you have any kind of insight, idea, anything that could point us to how they're gonna figure it out?
It's just honestly, you can't do the college football rankings because that's like that'd be wrong to determine who
Yes,
goes to the playoffs,
the most
or who
subjective
go-
thing
who
in the
goes
United
to the,
States.
what's that?
The most subjective thing in America.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to. I would have to come down to tiebreakers and head to head. Somehow, you have to figure something out. Like I get what you're saying. It's like, well, what if we have a scenario which again, it would never happen because I can't imagine they put a schedule together and said, well, Michigan won't play Ohio State this year. Nope, nope, they should. Um, so it really it got to come down to head to head. I doubt point differential would ever be a part of it. That would just be absolutely wild to do that. Um, so head to head, man, like strength of schedule, like I don't know. It's such, like I said, it's such an unknown that we will not know how to react until it happens. Like until it happens, we will just not know what to do. And I think, and I hope the Big Ten, they talked about it. I hope they have or because the thing was like when I talk about the East Central West, how do you determine out of those three divisions who goes to the Big Ten? If all three, let's say all three are undefeated, like each one has an undefeated team, then who's going to the Big Ten title game? It's the wildest thing. We just don't know. Or do they even eliminate the Big Ten title game because we have expanded playoffs, right? We're going to be at 12 teams. There's no pack anymore. So, and do they even eliminate? They say, well, you got three great Big Ten teams, send them to the playoffs and let them fight it out. But like I can't figure it out. It's such a wild unknown because this has been a wild week in college football.
Yes, yes, it
And we
has.
haven't even played a game yet.
Yeah, that's the craziest part to me is that we're talking about all of this. It's obviously we're gearing for 2023. When this they do have a whole year to kind of figure everything out. So hopefully they'll hopefully will get done by then. But this will be, for lack of a better term, an absolute crapshoot in determining who it can wear the chat conference ring at the end of the year. This has been fun. We're going to be right back after this commercial break. We'll be talking how this affects expanding college football playoffs, how this affects non-conference rivalries, and so much more. Once again, we are with Ryan Dunn for One and Done Radio. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the hot seat. I am Brock Vieira. Of course, Team MBS Media is the driving force behind this show. Check out all our content at Team MBS Media, articles, videos, YouTube shorts, whatever you want, we got covered. Of course, now we're all geared up for the college football season. Everyone's pushing out great college football content. That's what we're talking about here. Talking about how the Big Ten and their expansion. Back with Ryan Dunn for One and Done Radio. I want to talk out of conference rivalries. Now, obviously, in this new era, not talking about just this year, but just kind of the past 10 years, we've seen teams basically say to hell with our basically 100-year tradition rivalries, 50-year rivalries. We're going to abandon it and go forward to this new era. Now, we've seen that with Michigan and Notre Dame. I don't think they're not slated to play each other again until like 2033, which now that is in limbo again because of this new expansion. We've seen it with BYU, Utah, and now we're seeing it with obviously the Holy War in Oregon, the Apple Cup up in Washington. How will this affect the current rivalries in the Big Ten without a conference opponents like the Cyhawk Trophy between Iowa and Iowa State? Are they just going to start canceling these games, or how do you see it unfolding
Yeah.
here on out?
Did you even mention USC Notre Dame?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah,
That's another one.
that's a huge one.
That's a huge one.
Yeah.
I honestly, that's kind of funny too because it's like, well, do you make that your only? If what I said happens, right? Maybe they reduce the non-conference schedule. Do you make that your non-conference game? Do you make Oregon State happen? Do you make USC Notre Dame happen? Those rivalry week is one of the best weeks in all of college football. Like probably the best week
The best.
besides the playoffs and whatever, but the best week in college football is that week. So you take away those games, like what I love about that week is that no matter the record, right? A lot of teams are like, listen, we got nothing to lose. We got nothing to lose, everything to gain. Like a team like I know Georgia Tech won't beat Georgia anytime soon, but shoot, like you never know. Like I think this past year they actually played Georgia pretty tough early on in the game. Georgia pulled away, but it's like it's a fun weekend, and it's to get rid of these games. It's pretty disappointing. And like you said, Notre Dame and Michigan, that's one that probably won't happen again until the 2030s, and that's now up in jeopardy at this point. We don't know what's going to happen with that. And so I think if you are going to be a team that's going to stick with your game, then you make that your non-conference opponent. And unfortunately, you have to make that happen early. And because a lot of these conference games are big, especially at the end of the season when it comes to, and now Oregon State, if they continue that game, will be a non-conference game. And now, I love too, all these teams will expand and go to a different conference, and Notre Dame will be like, nope, independent still. I don't want to go anywhere. Like they have to join somebody at some point. Like, how do you not?
NBC, I think, is like the primary way, and also having the Notre Dame brand grant you instant access to things that you probably shouldn't be granted to. And the only reason why Notre Dame didn't really make the college football playoffs last year is because they lost to Marshall and Stanford. Had they only lost to Ohio State and USC, somebody probably would have snuck them in most likely. Maybe not with two. Maybe if they only had one out. Jesus. Every time I bring Notre Dame, I go on an anti-Notre Dame rant. Wow, I probably need therapy. But you do bring up a great point. Now, obviously, Notre Dame is independent, and they do a lot of their scheduling with teams and conferences. We saw it last year when they opened up against Ohio State. Before, they always used to play Michigan. They play USC every year. Do you think that now, because of the expanded big, just the big at this point,
The big.
will Notre Dame ever really play any team in the big ever again, or do they have to go somewhere else to find their opponents?
Again, that's kind of one of those ones like, well, do you schedule the non-conference? Does Michigan Notre Dame live up to their contract of playing again in the 2030s? Do they go that route? Do they say, you know what, fine, we'll make you our non-conference opponent that we have? But if you're Notre Dame, you got to kind of figure out what you're gonna do. Like you can't. My opinion is, I understand like Army, Navy, like they're kind of their own thing, right? Notre Dame too, but Notre Dame is usually more competitive to make the playoffs compared to Army, Navy, and Air Force, and those like teams that don't have an official conference. I know, wait a minute, Air Force got Mountain West.
Yeah, and also the Navy's in the American.
Oh, that's right, forgot about that too. But still,
Yeah, no, you
you
make
got
good
if even like you have to be in a conference, in my opinion. Like it's gonna kind of suck if you're Notre Dame to be like, well, I mean, I guess we could play them, but we could also play them in the ACC. We could play them in the SEC. Like, no, like I think you need to find a way to just have a set schedule, right? When COVID happened, what did they do? We're going to just play the ACC schedule, just join them because we kind of already do, but let's just play that for the full season. I think
Yeah,
that we should be stuck with one conference. I think I get what you're saying, the TV deal with NBC, that's what's going to keep them independent still probably for a little bit, but it, you got to find a conference to play in. Like it's not really fair, in my opinion, for Notre Dame to be, well, we could play, we could play some teams in Mountain West, we could play some teams over here, play some teams over there, and then we can see what the community does first. No, I think you need to go through a conference at this point. There's not much room left for you to just hide and be like, well, we're independent, so we can play these teams. No, just join a conference and fight your way to the top. That's it. And honestly, the best chance would be the ACC because it's just Clemson and Florida State right now that is really the top dogs in that conference. I understand like North Carolina and NC State sometimes is competitive,
yeah,
but the top dogs right now, I think Florida State is now like back in like, hey, we are Florida State. We're a great team. They are one, and Clemson will always still be Clemson. They will find a way to continue to be competitive for years to come.
yeah, and especially since I mean, the ACC kind of helped themselves recently, but there was a point probably a couple months ago where we almost saw a mass exodus from the ACC as well. So
Mhm.
we really don't exactly know how this is all going to shape up in 24 months' time. I think that's how unstable the college football world is. And the next element, as mentioned, is the expanded college football playoff. Now, that's been something that's been on our radar for a long time. Do you think that having this new expanded Big Ten conference basically guarantees the Big Ten at least two slots in this new expanded college football playoff?
It should. When you have these teams that are going to be really good, when you're going to have a USC that should be really good every year, when you're going to have a Michigan that is now a national title contender shape, Ohio State is should be Ohio State, and Oregon has its ups and downs, but last year we saw them again a couple losses away from being a playoff, playoff contention. So you're going to have these teams that, and UCLA, they're pretty solid themselves. They can be pretty good. They can compete as well. So having these teams in the conference should guarantee at least two. And again, I I think we talked about this last year before the Michigan Ohio State game. Like, should we have three from each conference? Well, I think at this point it's going to happen. Like this kind of route that we are on now is showing three teams from each conference will make the playoffs, and it's kind of unfortunate, especially for the smaller teams, because I love a good underdog story and like a team from a group of five that went undefeated and went 11-1, whatever the record might be, and they miss out because, well, the Big Ten, the big is better than you. And it's like, well, so does it really a 2 or 3 loss, you know, Washington, for example, do they deserve to get in over a one loss group of five team? Who knows? It depends on who the loss is to for them. So it's kind of unfortunate, but this is now we are at the point where we are going to see three from each conference make the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. So last playoff, we saw two Big Ten teams make it: Ohio State and Michigan. Obviously, Michigan made it because they went the entire season undefeated. They beat Ohio State. They won the Big Ten championship game over Purdue. They were there for the right reasons. Ohio State needed a variety of things to happen throughout last season to make it. So at least there was a little bit of a justification because not only did they need USC to lose, they needed Bama to lose twice. They needed this, and this to go down. So we
Yeah.
understand why they got in. Now, if it's 12 teams, does the big game outside of just, trash like bragging rights, does it really matter anymore in terms of trying to get into the playoff if you guys win the other 11 games?
You know, Ryan Day got trashed for this comment the other day, and he was saying how it could lose its luster. And I know Michigan players were saying, "Well, no, it won't because it's still the game." And I don't like Ohio State. I don't like Ryan Day. Last time I talked with you, I believe it was last time I talked with you on the show, I said it would lose its luster. It would unfortunately lose its importance during the regular season. And I don't think every year it'll lose importance because it's like, well, the winner of this game does need it to go to the playoffs, right? Does need this or does need to go to the Big Ten title game, So there could be a lot of factors that goes in that does either bring up how important this game is, and there could be some years where it's like, well, both these teams kind of already guaranteed a spot to get in to at least the Big Ten title game, so it's like they both whoever loses, like, whatever. So it could, and it's unfortunate. And so when people were giving Ryan Day a lot of crap for that, like, listen, I hate Ryan Day as much as the next Michigan fan hates Ryan Day, but honestly, they should keep him to a long term contract because we're doing fine against him right now. So when it comes when it comes to Ryan Day, like, he's not wrong. At the end of the day, it does lose its importance, and it's unfortunate because, like I said, we could potentially play Ohio State 3 times in the same season. You could play them in the game, play them in the Big Ten title game, and then you play them in the playoffs. It's unfortunate because I hate seeing scarlet and gray, right? That's their colors. I don't even care. Scarlet and gray. I hate seeing it three in one time during the season. Now I gotta see it 3 times during the season. It kind of sucks to see that. So it's Ryan Day is not wrong. It could lose its luster and lose its importance. So yeah, I do see that potentially happening depending on how it all goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And something Ryan Day also said, well, besides the whole hang 100 on you, he hasn't really recovered from that.
Yeah,
But
screw him for that. He's halfway there though after 2 games since. So
so, so one thing he also said was that the Ohio State program needs about between like I believe he said 13 to like $15 million in NIL initiatives to be competitive in the Big Ten every year. And even though people don't really want to talk about money in NIL, it is a big thing. Do
Mhm.
you believe that teams like USC, Oregon, which was backed by Nike, who has NIL initiatives, can come in, spend a lot more cash, and become very competitive very quick in this new big, especially with the new revenue that they're generating?
Yes, but at the end of the day, I've always said this: like you can bring the recruits in, but if you don't develop them, put them together as a team, and work with them, then it's not going to matter. We saw that with Texas A&M paid for a lot of recruits to come. A lot of them left. The team sucked. Like they're not that money can only do so much. It's like that's the thing with like the past couple of seasons for Michigan, for example. Yes, Ohio State has quote out like recruited us when it comes to that, but the last 2 seasons we have dominated them in the game that matters. So and we just because we out physical them. So if you don't develop your team the right way, then bringing these guys in doesn't matter. So do I see that happen with Oregon, USC, where they pay guys and the team sucks? No, I don't, because I do think they'll do a great job. Because I see Lincoln Riley is a good head coach. His track record speaks for itself. He puts up a lot of points. Defense sucks all the time, but he puts up a lot of points. And then when it comes to Oregon, they're going to bring in the best recruits that they can as well. So and I do think they do a great job developing good talent over there. So, again, at the end of the day, money can bring guys in, but if you can't develop them, and that's why whenever you have like a new head coach like that gets hired in, the most important hire you hire is your strength and conditioning coach. It's by far. You hire that guy first before or girl, whoever you hire them first before you do anything else as far as your staff. Once you got that done, now you can build everywhere else.
Absolutely. So we've talked in depth about the future of the Big Ten, the future of college football playoff rivalry game. Well, rivalry week is pretty much dead in the water. I mean, at least the Big Ten has the big game, the victory bell. You can kind of like stuff that in. But in terms of Apple Cup, Civil War, Cy Hawk, Jude Shalele, like that's. I think we all can all agree that's pretty much out the window if they don't do it by week one at this point because they're not doing it at the end of the season. From a Michigan standpoint, how does Jim Harbaugh and that Michigan staff, recruiting staff, everything go about to put the Wolverines in the best position to remain competitive in the big for the near future?
They buy more hamburgers for these kids. Um, no, without get you suspended 4 games. So don't do that. It's stupid. I'm sorry. Can I just say that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen? He got
Speak on it.
suspended because he bought a kid a hamburger or something like that during the dead period. When I just want to point this out. Didn't Urban Meyer remember the cover up he did for his guy and the domestic abuse that coach went through? And
Oh
he
yeah,
got 3 games.
yeah.
So we're saying what Harbaugh did was worth 4, but what Urban Meyer did was worth 3. Hmm, okay,
Oh,
I just want to get that out there.
well, that just silenced the Jim Tressel argument for every OSU fan out there.
Yeah. So okay. So anyways, um, the recruiting point when it comes to Michigan, I think the thing with Michigan is that they're a dominating recruiting offensive lineman, and they build the offensive lineman. You got Michigan's really doing a great job with offensive linemen and defensive linemen, especially edge rushers. We are doing a great job bringing these guys in. Our NFL resume does show when you have guys in the NFL, guys going to the NFL. We're doing a great job there. Linebackers are doing pretty good there too. So we got to keep up that momentum. I think Harbaugh knows the game is still going to be won in the trenches. You run the ball, control the clock, control the game with the trenches. You have success at the end of the day. So Harbaugh, I think he'll keep his mentality. I think as long as you build the trenches, out physical your opponent, I think he'll continue to recruit at a high level. We have a good recruiting class coming in for 2024. I did see a couple people freak out because we had a kid, I think, decommit from us to go to Boise State or something for 2025. I'm like, who cares? These kids, can I just say this about recruiting too? It
Go for it.
doesn't matter until they are actually on campus practicing. Like, nothing is set in stone. So do not freak out about your recruiting because it doesn't matter until they are wearing the freaking helmet, which that doesn't even matter anymore because these people, no, sorry, the kids still transfer because the transfer portal exists everywhere. And it's just, it's ridiculous. But that's why I'm like, when I see kids decommit or commit, I'm like, I don't even care until they show up because I, because NIL is such a big factor and recruiting and the transfer portal is also a big factor. So it's like, don't be so high that your recruiting class is so great or so down because so much can change until the first week of the season, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the reclassification that happens in high school, which I will admit, not admit, I want to just take a second to say, if you're a kid in high school, please don't reclassify unless you're guaranteed like $40 million, because first of all, you're throwing away your childhood.
Yeah.
Your high school ball is going to be the last time you can have genuine fun playing football.
Yeah.
You might never play a game in college because
Yeah.
that's how college works. So just enjoy your time. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. This whole new recruiting world and reclassification, transfer portal, NIL, commit, decommit, verbally commit when I'm 2 years old, or commit to another school when I'm three. All right. Decide I'm gonna play baseball when I'm four. Whatever it is, it is a cesspool that really doesn't matter until the ball is actually snapped and whistles are being blown. Now for Michigan, obviously we gotta wait till the whole scheduling thing comes out with the teams on the West Coast. They don't have a great record on the West Coast. Now, majority of those are Rose Bowl games, and honestly, majority of those losses are under Bo Schembechler. So you guys are that's a while ago. But in recent memory, when the temperature is above like 73, Michigan doesn't really have a lot of recent success. We're talking about obviously the Orange Bowl is one thing against Georgia, but then the Fiesta Bowl, things like that. Do you feel that traveling that far and playing in warmer climates are going to be detrimental to the Wolverines?
No, I think if I've had to pick a factor when it comes to traveling that the Wolverines would go through, I do think it's the factor of the time change because let's face it, like if they travel to USC and then it's a night game at USC at 7 o'clock, then the body of the Wolverines, for example, is at 10 o'clock. And so when the game ends, the body of the Wolverines is at like 1 a.m. And so that's the one thing like that. If I had to pick a factor, I don't think the temperature would be an issue. I get what you're saying that they will numbers show that they don't do it well. But I think when it comes to the traveling for those games, I do think the time change would be the biggest factor. Now, if they're playing like a 4 o'clock game, for example, that's no big deal. That's 7 o'clock their time. That's no big deal. But 7 o'clock game, 10 o'clock game for their bodies, that is a factor that could see being an issue.
Absolutely. Since obviously now we're at the West Coast, do you think Fox in general and their whole big noon kickoff is gonna like change, or are they just gonna remain on
Yeah.
the Great Lakes area / East Coast? Like, how do you see that playing out?
I think they should just keep it. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It'd be nice for me to wake up at 9 a.m. and watch a football game. So that's what they would go through if let's just say it's a game in Michigan, that's big noon, right? And Oregon's traveling to Michigan for the game. You wake up in the morning, you watch the game right then and there. So I don't have a problem with that. I think they should keep the Fox Big Noon. Now, if you are doing a game at noon at USC, then it's kind of like, well, what do we do? Because big noon, if we're going big noon off the East Coast, then it's going to be 9 a.m. for USC when the game starts. So it's kind of weird. Like you really can't go big noon for the West Coast. So it is kind of weird, but I do think they should keep at least for the East Coast teams where hey, it's actually noon over here, unless you're trying to cater to the West Coast, which is more fan base towards the East Coast than there is to the West side, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So you also keep in mind is that in recent memory, when teams travel from the West Coast to Michigan, Michigan does play at night games, so we
Yeah.
could see a lot more night games at the Big House. Which seeing the Big House at night is just a beautiful, beautiful sight.
It
So
is a thing of beauty.
yes. So obviously the big game will never be touched because it is one of the most important and also viewed games in all of college football.
Yep.
But with this new rescheduling shuffle, could we potentially see the loss of Michigan playing Penn State and Michigan State on a yearly basis, or are you not concerned about that?
I don't know about Penn State. Well, actually, I don't know about Michigan State because that is a big game for us. Even though again, Tuck's never coming. I'm still waiting for him to show up. Um, so I don't see that one going away. Even though I will say it's got a little toxic the past couple of years. The trash talk's a little toxic. The rivalry is a little bit toxic. But I do still think it's a very important game to have, especially an in-state rival. Penn State, that might we might see less of Michigan Penn State games, for example. We might see that like decrease because they're just not really a rival. They're not like the Ohio State, Michigan State. Those are our rivals. Penn State's like, oh, they're a tough opponent when they can be. But I remember I heard a lot of people trying to say before the time the schedules were like released as far as the times, a lot of people were trying to say, oh, that Michigan versus Penn State game is going to be a whiteout. So Penn State's automatically going to win. The game's at noon. Like, if it's a whiteout at noon, it's not a big deal. Like, if it's a whiteout at night, then that's obviously a big deal. But whiteouts at noon, whatever. Everyone's just wearing a white shirt. It's not really as electric as it would be as a night game. So, yeah, but
unless you're starting quarterback is Shea Patterson, then it might be a little bit of a
don't get me started on that game, man. Oh my gosh, I remember watching that game. We did come back. Can I just say for that season, it was so weird because we were so bad up through the first half of the Penn State game, and then everyone says ever since the second half of the Penn State game, Michigan's been much better. It's like it was so sad to watch that game because I was like, wow, this team's way better this half than they were the first half. But anyways, yeah, Penn State, I just don't see that as one that they want to really focus on scheduling, even though they should, because Penn State is a big opponent that could potentially compete for the Big Ten. I don't see that happening this year, but when the other teams do show up, I see that happening less. But you still want to at least give them that shot. Again, the teams like Rutgers, Northwestern, hey, you're fun to play, I guess. But for the other teams like Oregon, USC, those are the teams that are going to be more prioritized for the tougher opponents.
Absolutely. Last question before we go to commercial break. What happens to the Rose Bowl now?
I have no idea. I really don't. It's such a beautiful game too.
It is.
But unfortunately, the Rose Bowl, just like all other bowl games, has lost its luster. If you're not a bowl game that is in the playoffs, it just doesn't matter. That's why, like I've talked about before, like when Michigan beat Ohio State in 2021, and people want to say, well, Harbaugh's bowl record, when last time we played a bowl game, played against Utah, we beat them. Like, it does not matter. The bowl games outside, if you are a team like Michigan, Ohio State, where you have national title expectations, bowl games outside of the playoffs do not matter. Nobody cares because everyone sits or they just don't try as hard, whatever it might be. It doesn't matter. And so, unfortunately, the Rose Bowl is one of these games that is affected by it. And it sucks because it's such a fantastic game when it's played with full effort from both sides. It's a beautiful venue. It's amazing to see it. And for that to just disappear or just not have the same value behind it as it had, it's sad to see, really.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being with us talking about Big Ten football, this new era of the big conference, you rely everything like that. Go big, right? Go big and go blue. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to finish up with some questions about Michigan specifically. And then, of course, we're going to shout out your show, and everything you got going on. We will be right back with more of The Hot Seat.
This commercial is brought to you by TrueBrain. Say hello to TrueBrain. We're not magicians. We're not going to turn you into a rocket scientist, unless you're already a rocket scientist. We're not big pharma, and our products are custom made to boost mental output. We empower people to do their best thinking.
Welcome back to The Hot Seat. I am Brock Vieira. Of course, we are powered by Team NBS Media, and we are joined by Big Ten expert and, of course, diehard Michigan Wolverines fan Ryan Dunn of One and Done Radio. We just finished talking about the Big Ten. We've now just coined the term big. If anyone wants to use it, I'm going to do like a 50-50 split on the
I'm down.
profits because you coined it. My show, sent us money, preferably checks. But now that we got out of that taken care of, we're going to talk about your Michigan Wolverines. Talked about them a little bit in the previous, but want to deep dive into it. Michigan has a long tradition of great quarterbacks, at least at the college level, right? You got Jim Harbaugh, who would go on to be, or the Colts take him to the AFC Championship game. You have, of course, Tom Brady, who's one of the greatest, not the greatest quarterback in NFL history. Elvis Garback, who was a very long-time starter in the NFL. You had Brian Greasy, son of obviously the great Bob Greasy. He won the Rose Bowl and shared the 1997 National Championship. We go on and on and on. However, in recent history, especially in the Jim Harbaugh era, we have yet to see that consistency at the quarterback position. Could this be the year? Is J.J. McCarthy the QB1 for the future for the Wolverines?
I think you got to throw in Chad Henne too, a longtime NFL guy. He was around for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is one. He is by far the best quarterback that he's ever had at Michigan when it comes to Jim Harbaugh and J.J. McCarthy. So I do think that this is going to be the draft. I can't see how McCarthy just doesn't elevate his game this year. I expect them to be throwing the ball a little bit more. Just opening up the playbook when it comes to just giving him more opportunities to throw, especially in the early games where they're playing against like East Carolina and they're playing against the Rutgers. They're playing against bad teams that they should beat. I do expect them to let him throw the ball a little bit more. So, and I do expect McCarthy to be a very high prospect. Maybe not a first round pick. Who knows? Because the NFL draft, always has teams that has needs and then has teams that have wants, and that's why you see quarterbacks sometimes just slip a little bit, not because the team, they're not good, it's because the team's like, well, I don't have to go and get him for a first round. I can get actually what I need in the first round. If there's not a lot of teams that need a quarterback, then I can just wait till the second round or the third round to get a guy. So I do think, though, that this will be Harbaugh's best quarterback, again, that goes to the NFL and actually starts in the NFL and plays well in the NFL. McCarthy has a lot of tools to him. He's got a great arm, great attitude. You want to talk about a kid with just positive attitude? Go look at McCarthy.
Moxie to him too.
Yeah, he's got some moxie, man. He's got a good mindset that you want in a quarterback. And as far as a franchise quarterback, great mobility. He's someone that you could build around. And I can see that a team, I'm not even going to lie, I was being a little bit selfish. I was thinking, well, maybe the Colts should skip on Richardson and we take McCarthy next year. And there we go. I was like, then I'll buy a McCarthy jersey. He'll be in my team and I'll have everything I wanted. So it's, unfortunately that's not going to happen, but that's okay. So I'm good with AR. But yeah, I think McCarthy, again, best prospect Harbaugh's had. Like I said, he has not put a lot of, quarterbacks have technically gotten to the NFL. They've gotten their shot. It just hasn't worked out for them. I think the only guy when it comes to quarterbacks that actually lasted for a decent amount of time in the NFL is Jake Rudock. And he was just a backup, he didn't play, but he was just a backup guy. He was on a roster for a few years, I believe, with the Lions. Yeah, no one else really. So it is kind of sad to see. But I think McCarthy can be this guy that turns it around.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as he, doesn't throw an out route as a lob to a DB for a pick six, he'll be all good. Now, I know pot shot, boo-hoo, but I know I'm a bad guy. But who's a real bad guy is your former offensive coordinator who had to basically step down, do some inappropriate actions. I really don't know exactly what he did in terms of accessing restricted online. I don't want to know, but that's essentially what he did. You guys have a new offensive coordinator coming in. Do you think that that's going to be an issue with McCarthy and this offense heading forward, especially with Harbaugh suspended for the first 4 games?
Yeah, no, because last year it was so they were co-offensive coordinators. I forgot the other guy's name already because I was like, when that whole thing was going on, I was like, oh, he's gone. I'm already moving off him. So Sharon Moore, he's the full-time offensive coordinator now. I'm assuming last year it was Moore was the more running game coordinator. The other guy was the passing game coordinator, and maybe Harbaugh would tell him, hey, let's run it here, let's pass it here, kind of give that nod of what we're going to do. But no, I have full confidence in Joe Moore. He's a great offensive mind guy. Again, he top offensive line awards the past 2 seasons because he's been the offensive line coach for them as well. So I have no problem with that. I think he's going to do a great job this year. And, I love that this offseason, it's all McCarthy. There is no QB battle. There's no K McNamara, which I wish him well. There's none of that. It's you are the dude. You and I, we're going to sit down. We're going to go everything together. We're going to figure out what your strengths are and what we can do to improve on your weaknesses as well.
Absolutely. Now, no matter what scheme you do, you need the big boys up front to lead the way. Now, obviously, Michigan has had the best offensive line for basically the past 2 seasons. Of course, you guys won the award, I think the Remington Award for the best offensive line in college football last season. You guys did lose two guys, your center and your right tackle, Olo Segun, Olo Watimi, and Ryan Hayes. But you guys do return 3 starters. How do you feel about this offensive line going to 2023?
Yeah, and we have a couple of transfers that come in as well. We have, I think, 2 guys from Stanford, 1 guy from Arizona State that's come in. They're going to fill in just fine. And the guy the center, we have a center coming in from Stanford. He was actually, I think, out of the Pro Football Focus rankings, I think he was right behind Oluwatimi when it comes to centers. So I feel great. I feel we're just taking a step back. I doubt we're taking a step back. I'm sure we're just improving. I'm sure being at Stanford, doesn't really when you have a bad team like Stanford, you don't get a lot of the recognition that you probably should have gotten compared to what Michigan had when they went undefeated in their regular season, and bullied Ohio State in the second half of that game. So it's I feel good about offensive line again. We got great offensive line coach. Transfers are veteran transfers. They're not like a freshman that first time starting. There are quite a few guys coming in that they're going to slide in. We're going to go off and running and probably win the award for the 3rd straight year.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, that offensive line has been the catalyst to you guys' success, since in the past 2 years. However, another catalyst is Cornelius Johnson. Now, Michigan has 2 of my favorite wide receivers of all time, and Desmond Howard and Braylon Edwards. Do you think Johnson can elevate himself to being that all-time great level of receiver?
Ooh, first off, I have been up and down Cornelius Johnson. I will say that. Like last year, I'd be like, "Come on, Cornelius," and then other times I'd be like the Ohio State game, I was like, "All right, Cornelius, let's go." So I was up and down on him. I've been up and down on him. Do I think he has the potential to get to that point? No, because I think Braylon Edwards, and Des Howard, I mean, they were just different. Edwards, I feel like the Michigan State game that he had that night game against them, where he just takes over that game, was unbelievable to see with him and Chad Henne. So I don't see Cornelius Johnson taking that leap, especially because again, if our identity is running the football, we are a power football team. Roman Wilson, Roman Wilson, he's a great receiver as well on the outside. He honestly could take that next step. He's a very fast receiver. He could open up the ball. Very shifty. Get the ball in his hands. Let him work. He's just one of those guys that you want to do that with. So I can see Cornelius just having another good season. Maybe he's got the mindset of like, this is the year. Like, I mean, our expectations in Michigan this year is national title. And when you have the guys coming back, we are playing Ohio State at home. We have our quarterback, our offensive line. We got our running backs. Our defense is going to be great as last year too, probably better. So we have so many guys coming back. It's like, this is the year. Like they had one more year, like the 1 more year campaign where they brought like offensive linemen that would have gone to the NFL, probably been at least a 1st or 2nd round pick, decided to come back because like, let's go back and win the title. So it's national title or bust. I mean, even the players have said it.
Absolutely. That's a great foundation to start on. But what we always have to rely on is the running game. Now, Penn State, Ohio State, they got their own versions of the 1-2 punch. Michigan's got their clear 1-2 punch. But one of those punches coming off an injury, Blake Corum, the star, suffered a really bad injury at the end of last season. Do you feel confident he can get back to the level he was at in 2022?
Absolutely. The reports coming out of camp is that he looks better, stronger, faster than he did last year. That's great. So we got a guy. So when you got a guy that, let's face it, the vision that you get from Blake Corum, is unbelievable. I've always said that probably the most important trait to have in a running back is vision. The ability to see what is happening, what is going to open up, is something that you just cannot teach in a lot of running backs. So Corum has that, and I'm very excited to see what he does. Him and Donovan Edwards are the best running back tandem in the Big Ten. I don't care what anyone says; they just are. Like Blake Corum, before he got hurt, and I know Caleb Williams kind of took off, but Corum would have been in New York for the Heisman ceremony if he had not gotten hurt. Like he at least would have been there. Probably would not have won. Probably still would have gone to Caleb, but just being there as the running back, yeah, he would have been there. So he's coming back stronger and better. Offensive line is gonna be great. Him and Edwards gonna be the best 1-2 punch in the Big Ten, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Absolutely. Now, a big player that you guys got to replace is Luke Schoonmaker. Obviously, left to the NFL draft now with the Cowboys. You guys have an absolute animal in Colston. I believe Colston Loveland. Names always mess me up. Colston. Also, shout out to Colston Loveland's mom, who liked one of my tweets. But Colston Loveland is a guy that both
Enjoy
Bill
it.
Kerr and I are very big on. We've been big on him for a while. We saw him show up in the big game. Is he ready to be that big guy at the tight end position for the Wolverines this year?
I think he is, and I think that's why you did see a guy like Eric All leave. I think he did transfer out because he was out for most of the season with a back injury. Um, he goes to Iowa with Cade McNamara, so I don't know if it was loyalty to Cade, which I doubt it was, but he did leave. I think because he knew Colson Loveland was just more dynamic as a tight end compared to what Eric All was. Eric All was probably a better blocker compared to Colson Loveland, but I do expect that Loveland now being the tight end in Michigan, he's going to get improved on his blocking. He's still going to be a dynamic receiver in the pass game. So I expect Loveland, and again, he's only going to be a sophomore. Like, it's great that I get at least in there 2 years with this guy and McCarthy. Like, well, McCarthy probably one more year, but 2 years at least. Loveland's going to be a great tight end for him. We got some young tight ends as well. We actually got a transfer from Indiana. I forgot his name, it's escaping my head right now, but we got him. He's going to be good to have to kind of spell Loveland a little bit, or even a 2 tight end set. But Loveland going to be a fantastic year for him. Just watch out.
Love it. And I'm very excited about this Michigan offense. But as you all know, defense was championships. You guys lost 2 crucial pieces on the defensive line because they went on to the NFL, and Mozzie Smith and Mike Morris. What are you seeing from the replacements that gives you the confidence that Michigan will reach the national championship?
Oh, we just had transfers come in. Like, we just had guys come in. Like, we had Stewart from Coastal Carolina. That guy, he's gonna be. Watch out for him. He is gonna be so fun to watch. Spring game, he had a great spring game. Our edge rushers, man. The thing with them is that we got Jenkins. He's really good. We got McGregor, who's really good. Not Conor McGregor. But you'll see. So we got a lot of guys on the edge. We got guys on the inside as well. They're going to be a fantastic defensive front no matter what. And linebackers too. They're going to be a great linebacking core as well. We got just transfers coming in. It's just kind of the ones. It's like we don't rebuild, you reload, and we just bring more guys in to fill the void. And the only weakness I really see on the defense is our opposite corner. So we have our number 1 corner, Will Johnson, who he could probably be the best corner in the Big Ten. He's just that good, and he's only going to be a sophomore. Like freshman year, he had a fantastic freshman year. Sophomore year, he's going to have a really good season. It's just who is going to be that second guy? Who is going to be the guy playing opposite of him? Like that, you're going to have to shift a little more coverage towards him because you trust Will Johnson more on his side. So it just comes down to who that other corner is going to be. There's been a battle going on in camp, or a few guys fighting for that spot. So if I had to pick one weakness in that defense, that would be it. Because our defensive backfield, for the most part, is fantastic. Linebacking core is great. Defensive front is just great as well.
Absolutely. Last question for you. Obviously, Jake Moody has gone to the NFL, 3rd-round pick to the 49ers. Shout out to him. But Moody also helped you guys in a variety of ways, especially against Illinois last season. Are you concerned about your special teams unit at all?
Now, we had a transfer come in from Louisville, and I was worried. I will not lie. I was like, who's kicking for us? But we had a transfer come in from Louisville. He's a pretty accurate kicker, and he's not going to be as accurate as Moody. But if the offense is doing its part as far as getting into the red zone, or we have a drive stall, getting those easy field goals, I'll be fine with that. I don't know what his leg is from 50 yards and beyond. That's kind of where you really need to find those kickers, because usually kickers should make from under 40. They should, I know sometimes they miss, and college kickers they have a harder angle to hit from, but those ones that from beyond 50, I don't know what his leg is, and unfortunately, again, his name is escaping me as well. But he's going to be a good kicker, so I'm confident in our special teams as well.
Absolutely. Last question for you before we get you out of here. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh suspended for the first 4 games. Do you have any concerns, whether that be the first 4 games or just the team in general as the season goes on?
Oh, you said the first. I'm sorry.
Do you have any concerns in terms of the coaching in terms of the first four
Oh,
games at all?
no, I don't. I think I they haven't named who's going to be the assistant or who's going to be the interim coach. I believe it's going to be Mike Hart. He is the assistant coach for us. Um, I'd be fine with that. And again, let Sharon Moore do his thing on offense. Let Jesse Minter do his thing on defense. Mike Hart, hey, just you do your thing, making sure you call timeouts and make just do your part as the head coach, as your head coach for the first 4 games. Again, first 3 are non-conference, easy opponents, and then we play our first game. I believe it's Rutgers again, a conference game. So not worried about it. I think we'll be just fine as long as we just do our part, run the football, play great defense, play action pass. We're going to be just fine.
Yes. Also, shout out Mike Hart. He had a bit of a health scare last
Yep.
season, had to be carted out during the game. I believe came back the next week and is an
Yep.
absolute animal. Last question is kind of the continuation of that question. Do you think that having Harbaugh come back after 4 games and kind of that adjustment period will affect Michigan at all, or will you guys keep on rolling?
No, we'll just keep on rolling because he will be there for the practices. So with this suspension, he is allowed to be there for practice. He is not allowed to be there at the game, obviously, but I think it's going to be a big key too, because I know people want to laugh at us or whatnot, but the first game is at Nebraska when he does come back, and a night game at Nebraska.
Not
It's
easy.
it's not easy. It's not like we went there in 2021. It came down to the wire in that game. So it's not easy to go and win at Nebraska a night game, get Matt Rule's first year. So there might be a little bit of hype behind the team for that game. Again, Michigan being such a great opponent. So it might be Nebraska going to be a little more fired up for that game.
Might be an actual sellout.
Yeah, probably would be. I wouldn't be surprised especially if Nebraska gets off to a decent start this year. I can't imagine they don't sell out. So it would just it'd be good to have Harbaugh back. I don't think anything would change though. I think again, Harbaugh is a smart guy. He would probably sit down for the first 4 games, sit down with Mike Hart and say, "This is what our plan is. This is the whole game plan. They run it just fine." And then all he does is come in for the Nebraska game and leads us to victory.
Well, sounds like you're very confident about the Wolverines' chances in 2023. Of course, we're going to keep up with Michigan football, big conference football with you, and of course, the many other contributors that talk about this great conference and just talk about this great game in general. But when it comes to your stuff, where can we find you, Ryan?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I finally got my account back. Can I just say I had my account suspended? Sorry, on X, whatever it's called. I've had my account suspended for a week for violent speech. I talk sports. What's violent? So I got it back. So the account is at One Done Radio. So One DUNNE Radio. You can go on YouTube, find the channel there as well. Go on Spotify, iHeartRadio. The shows are uploaded every Tuesday and Thursday. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get the podcast, the show is on there. So that's where you can find me. I'm trying again. College football's coming up, so it's going to be a real fun season for podcasting and talking sports. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And that's not good that you got suspended because that means I'm probably next on that list.
Well, it just I don't understand why. And so the thing was sometimes too, you even get told like, hey, this is what caused your suspension, the language in this tweet or X or whatever it's called. So I never got that. I never got anything. So I kept appealing. Like, what was it? What was causing the suspension? Never was told. And then one day I woke up, I checked my email. I'm like, holy crap, I got it back. Like, I don't understand how, but I got it back. So it's stupid. Well, you might be next. If you haven't been suspended, maybe it's just a whole thing they do just to suspend people for a week. So get your backup account ready.
Absolutely. Check him out. Once again, check him out on Twitter at One Done Radio and his fantastic show, One and Done Radio. We'll be talking with Ryan throughout the season, whether it be this show, College Football Forecast, on X, whatever it is. We're looking forward to talking to you again about more Michigan football. And we're just looking forward to talking about football in general. For everyone that's watching, thank you guys so much. We'll see y'all next time. We are OUT out.